Michael Faulkender, Deputy Treasury Secretary. First of all, congratulations, Faulkender. Well done. You got through, huh?
Thank you, Larry. It's great to be back with you. Great to have my first interview with your show out on Pebble Beach.
All right. Well, we appreciate that very, very much. And can I just, I know this is maybe not directly a Treasury issue, but this Wall Street Journal article, I'm going to refer to it several times this evening because I think it's so important. Deregulation, okay? Not enough credit, not enough publicity, not enough visibility has been given to the importance of deregulation for economic growth, for wages, for better jobs, for stronger industries. You know, I don't know why this is, Mike, but it's really a very important issue.
It really is, because, Larry, as you recall from the first administration, we probably got just as much impact on growth coming from the deregulation that we engaged in as we did from tax reform. It really is the combination of those two things together that allowed us to see the kind of growth that we had during the first administration. And when you contrast that with what we saw over the last 4 years, with the Biden administration adding about $1.4 trillion of new regulatory burden on the American economy, adding hundreds of millions of compliance hours onto the American economy. Merely just reversing that trend is itself going to be create enormous growth for the American people, because time spent on compliance, Larry, as you know, is not time spent serving customers or innovating or bringing new products to market.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. By the way, Mr. Trump agrees with you. Actually, he thinks deregulation is more important than tax cuts. As I say, I don't need to decide that tonight. I'm just going to say they're both very important, as you just did. Now, speaking of taxes, Mr. Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Axios, which is sometimes gets it right and sometimes doesn't. They ran a story Friday that some people in the White House want to raise some taxes, particularly the top income tax rate. Say it isn't so, please, Michael Faulkender. Say it isn't so.
Larry, it's really important that we extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act so that we're not increasing tax burdens on American families, on American businesses. We're certainly going to be looking at making sure that there is not a $4.5 trillion tax increase at the end of this year. It's really important that we sustain the type of economic growth that's going to come with regulation, the deregulatory environment that the president's bringing, that comes with energy independence, that comes with addressing some of the trade situation that's gone unaddressed for decades in this country. And so we're going to continue to work with both the House and the Senate in order to make sure that tax increase doesn't go on, and that we continue the success of the tax reform that President Trump put in place.
So read my lips, no new taxes?
Read my lips, we're going to make sure that the American people don't have a $4.5 trillion tax increase at the end of this year.
All right. So Mr. Thune, Senate Majority Leader Thune, is talking about getting a Senate budget resolution done this week. What are the odds of that?
I think they're very good, Larry. So Secretary Bessent is part of what's called the Big Six, which is two senior leaders of the administration, the top two in the House, the top two in the Senate. They're getting together every other week. We've got another one of those meetings scheduled for tomorrow. The House and the Senate are working very closely with each other at both the leadership and the staff level to bring together language that's going to satisfy the majorities in both chambers. We have been working with them overtime over the weekend to make sure that that language is ready to go coming out of the Senate, making sure that it's going to pass the House, because we want to get a budget resolution passed in the next 2 weeks so that we can get to the hard work of actually drafting the reconciliation law itself, so that we can again have the president sign that package sometime this summer, so that businesses and individuals know well in advance that they're not going to be seeing a tax increase at the end of this year.
And he's also saying, Senator Thune is also suggesting that senators, I don't know who exactly, the Budget Committee, whoever, will meet with the Senate parliamentarian tomorrow or Wednesday in order to nail down, for example, the current policy baseline, which would render the tax cuts deficit neutral, and other matters. You expect to get decisions from the parliamentarian?
We do. So those inquiries are going in because we do want to make sure that in crafting the budget resolution, that everything that's going into the resolution is going to be consistent with the ultimate determinations of the parliamentarian when the final reconciliation bill comes up for review. And so that's why we're working to make sure that the language in the budget resolution is going to be compliant with ultimately where the parliamentarian is. We saw that under the Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act, or so-called IRA bill, that they got a lot of leeway from the parliamentarian. We're expecting likewise to make sure that the parliamentarian works with us to make sure that when we undo some of the damage of IRA, when we extend the tax cuts, that we make sure that they are going to get favorable treatment by the parliamentarian.
So, bandied about the number $2 trillion for budgetary savings, and I think that probably includes Elon Musk's Doge savings as well. Does that sound about right to you? The House and Senate agree on a couple $1 trillion of savings?
I think it does, Larry, because if you look at the savings that they are identifying, if you look at if you look at reimposing work requirements on various social service programs, if you think about the elimination of some of the spending that was done under the IRA, rescissions of some of the spending that's been in place, altogether, we should be able to get to a $2 trillion mark in terms of spending reductions over the budget window.
And also, Mike Faulkender, do you think that the tax cuts will ultimately be made permanent? The old tax cuts, the ones being extended from 2017, and what I call tax cuts or Trump tax cuts 2.0, will it all be permanent? One big, beautiful bill.
So, Larry, the president has made it a priority that we make the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act elements that are expiring at the end of this year, absent the reconciliation package. He wants those things to be made permanent. And so that's why working with the parliamentarian to make sure that we are going to be able to use the current policy budget, because that's the legislative mechanism that unlocks our ability to make those permanent. That's a top priority from Treasury and the White House. And so we are working very closely with our partners up in Congress to see that happen.
The other thing, Mike, I want to ask you about is the economy in the first quarter, which ends today, actually. I believe today is March 31st. So there's been a drop in consumer confidence. That doesn't always jibe with actual numbers, but there has been a drop in consumer confidence. And the revised number for the Atlanta Fed GDP tracker is minus 0.5%. There's some glitches on gold shipments, gold import shipments, but putting that aside. How do you see the economy right now? What can you report to us from your vantage point?
Yeah, Larry, you know, the secretary has talked about the importance of reprivatizing the economy. If you look at the way that the economy has been managed over the last couple of years, it's really been a focus on government and government-centric industries. There's a real priority in this administration to make sure that the private sector has the right incentives and the right access to capital, because you and I both know that if you want sustainable economic growth, it's got to come from the innovation in the private sector, not through a bunch of government dictates. And that's why we're really focused on making sure that as we unleash capital for the private sector, as we provide them permanence of the tax structure, as we reintroduce pro-growth incentives in the tax code, like bonus depreciation, like R&D tax credits, like immediate expensing for investments in factories, that those kinds of things are going to spur private sector economic growth in order to give consumers and businesses the type of environment that they need to see sustainable growth. So I'm less worried about a single quarter. I'm much more worried about making sure that we get in place the tax policies, the regulatory policies, the energy and the trade policies that are going to provide us with long-term sustainable growth, rather than this government approach that is not sustainable.
I mean, it's not Trump's economy until he gets his whole package through. That's the deal. First quarter is certainly not his economy. And Bidenflation is also not his economy. Anyway, I got to jump. Congratulations, Deputy Treasury Secretary Mike Faulkender, who is an old and dear friend. We appreciate you coming on the show, Michael, very much. Good luck on the new.
So great to be with you again, Larry.